Hi, my name is Alex Swinney, and I'll be reading 1 Samuel 12 through 14. Samuel said to all Israel, "I have listened to everything you said to me, and have set a king over you. Now you have a king as your leader. As for me, I am old and gray, and my sons are here with you. I have been your leader from my youth until this day. Here I stand, testify against me in the presence of the Lord and his anointed. Whose ox have I taken? Whose donkey have I taken? Whom have I cheated? Whom have I oppressed? From whose hand have I accepted a bribe to make me shut my eyes? If I have done any of these things, I will make it right." "You have not cheated or oppressed us," they replied. "You have not taken anything from anyone's hand." Samuel said to them, "The Lord is witness against you, and also his anointed is witness this day, that you have not found anything in my hand." "He is witness," they said. Then Samuel said to the people, "It is the Lord who appointed Moses and Aaron and brought your ancestors up out of Egypt. Now then, stand there, because I am going to confront you with evidence before the Lord as to all the righteous acts performed by the Lord for you and your ancestors. After Jacob entered Egypt, they cried to the Lord for help, and the Lord sent Moses and Aaron, who brought your ancestors out of Egypt and settled them in this place. But they forgot the Lord their God. So he sold them into the hand of Sisera, the commander of the army of Hazor, and into the hands of the Philistines and the king of Moab, who fought against them. They cried out to the Lord and said, 'We have sinned. We have forsaken the Lord and served the Baals and the Ashtoreths. But now deliver us from the hands of our enemies, and we will serve you.' Then the Lord sent Jerub, Baal, Barak, Zephthah, and Samuel, and he delivered you from the hands of your enemies, all around you, so that you lived in safety. But when you saw that Nahash, king of the Ammonites, was moving against you, you said to me, 'No, we want a king to rule over us,' even though the Lord your God was your king. Now here is the king you have chosen, the one you asked for. See, the Lord has set a king over you. If you fear the Lord and serve and obey him, and do not rebel against his commands, and if both you and the king who reigns over you follow the Lord your God, good. But if you do not obey the Lord, and if you rebel against his commands, his hand will be against you, as it was against your ancestors. Now then, stand still and see this great thing the Lord is about to do before your eyes. Is it not wheat harvest now? I will call on the Lord to send thunder and rain, and you will realize that an evil thing you did in the eyes of the Lord when you asked for a king." Then Samuel called on the Lord, and the same day the Lord sent thunder and rain. So all the people stood in awe of the Lord and of Samuel. The people all said to Samuel, "Pray to the Lord your God for your servants, so that we will not die, for we have added to all our other sins the evil of asking for a king." "Do not be afraid," Samuel replied. "You have done all this evil, yet do not turn away from the Lord, but serve the Lord with all your heart." Then Samuel called on the Lord, and that same day the Lord sent thunder and rain. So all the people stood in awe of the Lord and of Samuel. The people all said to Samuel, "Pray to the Lord your God for your servants, so that we will not die, for we have added to all our other sins the evil of asking for a king." "Do not be afraid," Samuel replied. "You have done all this evil, yet do not turn away from the Lord, but serve the Lord with all your heart. Do not turn away after useless idols. They can do you no good, nor can they rescue you, because they are useless. For the sake of his great name, the Lord will not reject his people, because the Lord was pleased to make you his own. As for me, far be it from me that I should sin against the Lord by failing to pray for you, and I will teach you the way that is good and right. But be sure to fear the Lord and serve him faithfully with all your heart. Consider what great things he has done for you. Yet if you persist in doing evil, both you and your king will perish." 1 Samuel 13. Saul was 30 years old when he became king, and he reigned over Israel 42 years. Saul chose 3,000 men from Israel. 2,000 were with him, at Michmash and in the hill country of Bethel, and 1,000 were with Jonathan at Gibeah in Benjamin. The rest of the men he sent back to their homes. Jonathan attacked the Philistine outpost of Gibeah, and the Philistines heard about it. Then Saul had the trumpet blown throughout the land and said, "Let the Hebrews hear." So all Israel heard the news. Saul has attacked the Philistine outpost, and now Israel has become obnoxious to the Philistines. And the people were summoned to join Saul in Gilgal. The Philistines assembled to fight Israel, were 3,000 chariots, 6,000 charioteers, and soldiers as numerous as the sand on the seashore. They went up and camped at Michmash, east of Bethaven. When the Israelites saw that their situation was critical and that their army was hard-pressed, they hid in caves and thickets, among the rocks, and in pits and cisterns. Some Hebrews even crossed the Jordan to the land of Gad and Gilead. Saul remained at Gilgal, and all the troops with him were quaking with fear. He waited 7 days, the time set by Samuel, but Samuel did not come to Gilgal, and Saul's men began to scatter. So he said, "Bring me the burnt offering and the fellowship offerings." And Saul offered up the burnt offering. Just as he finished making the offering, Samuel arrived, and Saul went out to greet him. "What have you done?" asked Samuel. Saul replied, "When I saw that the men were scattering, and that you did not come at the set time, and that the Philistines were assembling at Michmash, I thought, now the Philistines will come down against me at Gilgal, and I have not sought the Lord's favor. So I felt compelled to offer the burnt offering." "You have done a foolish thing," Samuel said. "You have not kept the command the Lord your God gave you. If you had, he would have established your kingdom over Israel for all time. But now your kingdom will not endure. The Lord has sought out a man after his own heart and appointed him ruler of his people, because you have not kept the Lord's command." Then Samuel left Gilgal and went up to Gibeah in Benjamin, and Saul counted the men who were with him. They numbered about 600. Saul and his son Jonathan and the men with them were staying in Gibeah in Benjamin, while the Philistines camped at Michmash. Raiding parties went out from the Philistine camp in 3 detachments. One turned toward Ophrah in the vicinity of Shual, another toward Beth Horon, and the third toward the borderland overlooking the valley of Zeboim, facing the wilderness. Not a blacksmith could be found in the whole land of Israel, because the Philistines had said, "Otherwise the Hebrews will make swords or spears." So all Israel went down to the Philistines to have their plow points, mattocks, axes, and sickles sharpened. The price was 2/3 of a shekel for sharpening plow points and mattocks, and 1/3 of a shekel for sharpening forks and axes, and for repointing goads. So on the day of the battle, not a soldier with Saul and Jonathan had a sword or spear in his hand. Only Saul and his son Jonathan had them. Now a detachment of Philistines had gone out to the pass. 1 Samuel 14. One day Jonathan, son of Saul, said to his young armor-bearer, "Come, let's go over to the Philistine outpost on the other side." But he did not tell his father. Saul was staying on the outskirts of Gibeah under a pomegranate tree in Migron. With him were about 600 men, among whom was Ahijah, who was wearing an ephod. He was the son of Ichabod's brother, Ahitub of Phinehas, and son of Eli, the Lord's priest in Shiloh. No one was aware that Jonathan had left. On each side of the pass that Jonathan intended to cross to reach the Philistine outpost was a cliff. One was called Bozez, and the other Sinai. One cliff stood to the north toward Michmash, the other to the south toward Gibeah. Jonathan said to his young armor-bearer, "Come, let's go over to the outpost of those uncircumcised men. Perhaps the Lord will act in our behalf. Nothing can hinder the Lord from saying, whether by many or by few." "Do all that you have in mind," his armor-bearer said. "Go ahead, I am with you heart and soul." Jonathan said, "Come on then, we will cross over toward them and let them see us. If they say to us, 'Wait there until we come to you,' we will stay where we are and not go up to them. But if they say, 'Come up to us,' we will climb up, because that will be our sign that the Lord has given them into our hands." So both of them showed themselves to the Philistine outposts. "Look," said the Philistines, "the Hebrews are crawling out of the holes they were hiding in. The men on the outpost shouted to Jonathan and his armor-bearer, "Come up to us and we'll teach you a lesson." So Jonathan said to his armor-bearer, "Climb up after me. The Lord has given them into the hand of Israel." Jonathan climbed up using his hands and feet, with his armor-bearer right behind him. The Philistines fell before Jonathan, and his armor-bearer followed and killed behind him. In that first attack, Jonathan and his armor-bearer killed some 20 men in an area of about half an acre. Israel then panic struck the whole army. Those in the camp and field, and those in the outposts and raiding parties, and the ground shook. It was a panic sent by God. Saul's lookouts at Gibeah and Benjamin saw the army melting away in all directions. Then Saul said to the men who were with him, "Muster the forces and see who has left us." When they did, it was Jonathan and his armor-bearer who were not there. Saul said to Ahijah, "Bring the ark of God." At that time it was with the Israelites. While Saul was talking to the priest, the tumult in the Philistine camp increased more and more. So Saul said to the priest, "Withdraw your hand." Then Saul and all his men assembled and went to the battle. They found the Philistines in total confusion, striking each other with their swords. Those Hebrews who had previously been with Philistines had gone up with them to their camp, went over to the Israelites who were with Saul and Jonathan. When all the Israelites who had hidden in the hill country of Ephraim heard that the Philistines were on the run, they joined the battle in hot pursuit. So on the day the Lord saved Israel, and the battle moved on beyond Beth-aven. Now the Israelites were in distress that day, because Saul had bound the people under an oath, saying, "Cursed be anyone who eats food before evening comes, before I have avenged myself on my enemies." So none of the troops tasted food. The entire army entered the woods, and there was honey on the ground. When they went into the woods, they saw the honey oozing out, yet no one put his hand on his mouth, because they feared the oath. But Jonathan had not heard that his father had bound the people with an oath. So he reached out the end of the staff, and that was in his hand, and dipped it into the honeycomb. He raised his hand to his mouth, and his eyes brightened. Then one of the soldiers told him, "Your father bound the army under a strict oath, saying, 'Cursed be anyone who eats food today.' That is why the men are faint." Jonathan said, "My father has made trouble for the country. See how my eyes brightened when I tasted a little of this honey? How much better it would have been if the men had eaten today some of the plunder they took from their enemies. Would not the slaughter of the Philistines have been even greater?" That day, after the Israelites had struck down the Philistines from Michmash to Aijalon, they were exhausted. They pounced on the plunder, and taking sheep, cattle, and calves, they butchered them on the ground and ate them together with the blood. Then someone said to Saul, "Look, the men are sinning against the Lord by eating meat that has blood on it." "You have broken faith," he said. "Roll a large stone over there at once." Then he said, "Go out among the men and tell them, 'Each of you bring me your cattle and sheep, and slaughter them here and eat them. Do not sin against the Lord by eating meat with blood still in it.'" So everyone brought his ox that night and slaughtered it there. Then Saul built an altar to the Lord. It was the first time he had done this. Saul said, "Let's go down and pursue the Philistines by night and plunder them till dawn, and let us not leave one of them alive." "Do whatever seems best to you," they replied. But the priest said, "Let us inquire of God here." So Saul asked God, "Should I go down and pursue the Philistines? Will you give them into Israel's hand?" But God did not answer him that day. Saul therefore said, "Come here, all you who are leaders of the army, and let us find out what sin has been committed today. As surely as the Lord who rescues Israel lives, even if the guilt lies with my son Jonathan, he must die." But not one of them said a word. Saul said to all the Israelites, "You stand over there. I and Jonathan my son will stand over here. Do what seems best to you," they replied. Then Saul prayed to the Lord, the God of Israel, "Why have you not answered your servant today? If the fault is in me or my son Jonathan, respond with Urim. But if the men of Israel are at fault, respond with Thummim." Jonathan and Saul were taken by lot, and the men were cleared. Saul said, "Cast the lot between me and Jonathan my son." And Jonathan was taken. Then Saul said to Jonathan, "Tell me what you have done." So Jonathan told him, "I tasted a little honey with the end of my staff, and now I must die." Saul said, "May God deal with me, be it ever so severely, if you do not die, Jonathan." But the men said to Saul, "Should Jonathan die, he who has brought about this great deliverance in Israel? Never, as surely as the Lord lives, not a hair of his head will fall to the ground, for he did this today with God's help." So the men rescued Jonathan, and he was not put to death. Then Saul stopped pursuing the Philistines, and they withdrew to their own land. After Saul had assumed rule over Israel, he fought against their enemies on every side: Moab, the Ammonites, Edom, the kings of Zobah, and the Philistines. Wherever he turned, he inflicted punishment on them. He fought valiantly and defeated the Amalekites, delivering Israel from the hands of those who had plundered them. Saul's family. Saul's sons were Jonathan, Ishbi, and Malchi-Shua. The name of his older daughter was Merab, and that of the younger was Michal. His wife's name was Ahinoam, daughter of Ahimaaz. The name of the commander of Saul's army was Abner, son of Ner, and Ner was Saul's uncle. Saul's father Kish and Abner's father Ner were sons of Abiel. All the days of Saul, there was bitter war with the Philistines, and wherever Saul saw a mighty or brave man, he took him into his service. And that is all. Thank you so much for reading with me. I pray everyone has such a good day and knows that Jesus is with them.
Hello, my friend, and welcome to Fury into Faith, Global Bible Revival, where we are passionate to see 1 million people read the Word of God cover to cover in a year. My name is Summer Day, and I have with me in the studio the fabulous Alex Swinney. Is it Sweeney or Swinney?
Sweeney spelled like Swinney.
Sweeney spelled like Swinney. Alex Swinney.
Yes.
Yes, from the Sweeney 7.
Yes.
Woohoo! I told you I had one job. I just had to get your name right. It's all downhill from there.
Already messed it up.
And we're not going to fix it. We're going to move forward.
I like it.
How are you feeling after recording your section of reading the Bible?
I am feeling super good. It was very intimidating. It was nerve-wracking, but it was cool to know, like, regular people who might not even own a Bible are going to be watching me read the Bible.
Yeah.
So, like, why be perfect?
I love it.
'Cause definitely was not perfect.
That is okay. We don't want perfect people reading. We want normal people just like you reading that people go, oh, she doesn't know how to say that word either. Okay, now we said that you're the Sweeney 7.
Yes.
Let's talk a little bit about that for people that don't know anything about you and who you are and what you're up to. Why are you called that?
Well, I have 7 kids.
And you look like you're like 16 and you're stunning. And
Thank you. I have 7 kids, but we actually got the name when it was just 5. We were pregnant with our 5th kid, and, like 2 parents, 5 kids, that equals 7.
Yeah.
Now, we didn't change it to the Sweeney 9. We just kept it at the Sweeney 7, and we just happened to have had 2 more kids since then.
Yeah. And how old is your youngest?
She just turned 1.
So you may at some point have to figure out what you're going to do.
Yeah, maybe at some point we'll get there when it...
Well, I know you're called that because you're on Instagram, and we just have to, like, right away share probably one of the most exciting things I have ever seen in my life on Instagram. I recently saw the video of you, and you just happened to be, giving birth in a car. In a moving vehicle. You guys didn't stop. You just...
No.
It absolutely blew my mind. I had to watch it 7 times. You giving birth, catching your own baby. That's what I did there. You giving birth and catching your own baby.
Yeah, so...
Tell us about this.
There's actually a really, really cool story behind it. So I just kind of found Jesus like a year and a half before. I grew up, with a Christian faith and everything. I had a kid's Bible that I was given. I had never opened my Bible on my own until about a year and a half before that video. And I opened up my Bible and just like found Jesus and fell in love. And it was a year of like the hardest, like things that most people don't go through.
Yeah.
At 21, 22 years old. Mm-hmm. And when my husband and I kind of like came out of it, we had 4 kids at the time, we got pregnant. And during that pregnancy, you're still like trying to like find Jesus. You're like coming out of all this chaos and everything. And one of the things I was like, I want a home birth. And he was like, no. So we fought about it for a little while. Then I was just like, okay, God, I'm just going to give this to you. And I remember I would sit there and pray, God, this is the birth that I want. But even if it's the complete opposite, I trust you. Wow. Because my thing was I wanted to be there to catch my baby. I didn't want lights all around me. I wanted just like this peaceful, like with my family around, the kids there.
Yeah.
But my husband wanted me like safely at the hospital. Like that was at the time, that was, you know what, we were so not planned at all. We go to the midwife right down the street from where we lived at the time. I was like, hey, I think I'm in labor. You know, let's make sure before I go to the hospital. Mm-hmm. And she's like, yeah, you're in labor. Just drive. I'll meet you there.
Okay.
Looking back, she probably should have kept me there. And I was like, I walked out of there without a shirt on. I was like in labor.
Wow.
And I get into the car and
it was your fifth child. So
yeah,
you knew labor well. You weren't guessing like a first-time mom.
Yeah,
okay.
I knew. And we're like 7 minutes from the hospital, and I look over to my husband. I was like, hey, take a picture so we can remember this moment. Mm. And he takes out his phone and films it. And like, only God could have made it that perfect while he's driving. Like, that was perfect, right? And we were safe. Was it a little dangerous? Yes. But he was just trying to get us to the hospital. Like, he was doing his job. Yeah. And it was beautiful.
Like, did you know the baby was going to come out? Or did you?
Kind of.
I'm like, why didn't you pull over?
Because he was like, we're trying to get to the hospital, you know?
He was just concerned about how to get to the hospital.
And if you watch to the end of the video, you'll hear me saying, I remember so clearly, I said, I feel like I'm dreaming. It makes me emotional. Oh, yeah, because that was what, like, you know, I wanted to deliver my own baby with my family around. Like, how perfect was that? But we still made it to the hospital so that we was still, you know, being respectful of my husband who...
I guess
it was literally perfect.
I guess you're having all the things. At what point, was there a point? Because my second daughter, I thought she was going to come out in the car. So I have a similar story where I saw a midwife and she's like, you'll probably have this baby tonight. And we lived far away. So she's like, go to the hotel. It's just down the street. And I remember things happening and then having a contraction. And then I remember telling my husband, you tell her we're coming to the hospital. This baby's coming.
Baby's coming.
And then my water broke all over the floor. And I remember grabbing him, looking him in the eye and going, we do not have much time. Like, I was freaked out. And I remember driving, and the whole time I'm like, breathing fast, holding, clenching everything. My friend's in the back, he's driving, and we missed one red light. And I remember thinking to myself, I counted the cars. I was like, we're going to miss the next one. He's going to have to catch the baby. She's going to have to, tell the cars to go around, and the midwife's going to have to run down because we're like right around the corner. By the grace of God, we made it through that light. But I remember the whole time thinking, like, I was clenching it all in and everything. So when I watched your video, I go, was there a point when you realized, despite your best efforts, there was no chance this baby was going to wait? Or did it just kind of happen? You weren't thinking about it? What was going on?
I think it was just like there was such a peace in the car that the fact that my midwife put me into the car facing the back, she was like, this will be more comfortable.
Okay.
So it was literally like, unbeknownst to her, like preparing me to give birth.
Yeah.
Because that's a great position to give birth in. Like,
I guess
they do that in the hospital. Yeah, great position. But when my water breaks, the baby comes out right after.
Okay.
So my water broke as we're passing this one school that we actually go to church at right now.
Wow.
Like the same school that my daughter was born at, that intersection.
Yeah.
We go to church there, which is really cool. So my water broke and I was like...
So you're like, okay, well then this is happening. So great.
There's like a little scary, but it was just so awesome.
Yeah, but you just said that there was just kind of peace in the car and everything.
Because it was like what I wanted. And I also knew that we were safe. Like if I would have been worried, I would have been like, pull over, like call the ambulance now.
Yeah.
I knew that, like I was like, everything's good. When we pulled up to the hospital, one of the midwives was there to meet us and they were all kind of like freaking out. And I remember I told them like, everything's fine.
Everything's good.
Like, we're all good.
Yeah, like I was like, the hospital probably has experienced that before, but maybe
they were all like freaking out, and I was just immediately like, everything's fine.
Everything's good. They like grabbed a wheelchair and what? Like,
yeah, we just like sat down.
Yeah, just kind of had the baby, sat, I just took you in, and
and now, ironically, my husband delivers our babies at home by herself.
Okay, so number 6 and number 7, he's like, instead of chancing it in a movie vehicle, let's just go ahead and. Wow. And how did that experience transform your family? Like, what came from that?
So many blessings. That was like I feel like I have like many burning bush moments, like pivotal moments. And like, that was just like another, or maybe one of the first biggest confirmations where God's like, despite your sin, despite the mistakes like y'all have made, I'm going to bless you because you're seeking me. And so that was probably one of the first big moments. And then like, you know, the next many months after it.
This is the most horrible time to have to pause you to go to a commercial.
Sorry, no, you're fine.
We have to.
Yeah, no, yeah.
So we're gonna take a break and we'll be
That's
right
good,
back
because
after this.
I need to
Oh my
mark
goodness.
this.
Yeah, we can give you a...
If you want to amplify your cause and mission, be sure to watch Giving Out Loud with Grace Lanny right here on Zonder TV.
We are back, and Alex, I gotta say, like, we just left you off. You were crying, and I hated cutting you off. You were getting really emotional and moved, sharing with us about just how the Lord has shown up since that experience of birthing your baby in the car, and just how you were getting emotional and getting moved. What was that about? What was going on?
Yeah, it was just, you know, like, God works in more ways than just like the simple blessings, the small blessings that go, you know, like the help here and there. Giving birth in the car and like the blessings that we received from that, it was like a huge, hey, you know, you ran away from me, but you came back.
Yeah.
Like, I love you. Like, I will pour out my blessings on you. And like, so that's what that represented to us. You know, that was kind of like the first time of getting to see, like, God's not just somebody that, you know, you can pray to. Like, he actually wants to bless you and like give you things that you're not even asking for.
Yeah.
You know, things that you sometimes don't even know that you want, but also you're like, oh, like, I don't necessarily like need that. That'd be cool if I got it. And God's like, oh, I'm gonna give you more than that.
Yeah. He likes to delight you. So what were some of the blessings that came out? I know you were sharing with me that you got interviewed. Like, so how did people find out about this birth? Like, it was like, you know, TV footage leaked out or something, and you said everybody found out. Tell me more about that. Because I didn't know.
Yes. Okay. So I had asked my husband to take a picture. He recorded it. You know, God kept us all safe while the camera was perfectly on me.
I know, the whole time I'm like,
which is really
how
cool.
did he not crash?
But then whenever we did get to the hospital, like, God gave me words to type out. So I just typed them on my notes, as I always do. Yeah. And my husband's sitting there on the couch and he goes, can I share this?
Wow.
And I was like, you can share it, but we're going to share it with these words that I just typed. Because I wasn't going to share it at all. At first I was like, you cannot send this to anyone.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, this is
private.
Me. Yeah, this is me having a baby.
Very vulnerable.
But I think typing out the original caption that I had with it, like those words, I was like, this needs to be shared. And oh yeah, and from there it just like spread. And even that was its own answered prayer, because back before Instagram was a thing, I thought it was cool to like get a viral video. So I would pray for years, you know, like the cat videos.
Oh,
like
yeah.
YouTube stuff.
You wanted your own cat video.
Oh yeah. I'd be like, God, do something cool so we can go viral.
Where did the video go viral at? Everywhere?
I think it started in TikTok.
Okay.
Yes, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook.
How many views did you end up getting on TikTok?
I mean, honestly, I couldn't tell you. I don't know, because people like repost it. But I know, like, we were interviewed in probably like 20 different countries. Like, I'd say well over like a quarter of the world has seen me having a baby.
You can check out the rest of this interview right here or by going to BibleRevival.tv. And if this show has blessed you, you can help us bless others by partnering with us for as little as $20 a month and help us to expand the reach of this show. We'd also like to invite you to join our Kingdom Discipleship Program, where you have an opportunity to get on weekly Bible Zoom calls with us and people around the world to deep dive into His Word. And you can check all that out at BibleRevival.tv. I'll see you next time, my friend.